Drayton Manor is currently home to the only operating Intamin stand-up roller coaster, at least for now. The park recently announced some big changes that'll be taking place with Shockwave. They'll be converting it from a stand-up coaster into a sit-down, meaning there'll officially be no more Intamin stand-ups left in the world. I'm going to talk about that change a bit more at the end of the video, but first I want to walk through the ride experience, let you know what it's like to experience this ride, because you still have till the end of the year, 2023, to experience Shockwave in its current form. So first off, the ride opened in 1994. It's located towards the back of the park, right up alongside the water. It actually goes over the park's Rapids ride. That's why you'll notice there's some weird straight sections in this layout. They had to accommodate for the ride path of that other attraction. You're looking at a height of 120 feet, max speed 53 miles per hour, 4 inversions, that has a vertical loop, 0G roll, and double corkscrew. The coaster used to feature a white and gray kind of color scheme. Now it's this bright blue. It's got a one-of-a-kind train setup, very strange and bizarre. The loading procedure for this was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. You know how on a regular old B&M stand-up coaster, you pull down your over-the-shoulder restraint, which just goes down a little bit past your waist? On here, instead, you have one half of that over-the-shoulder restraint that rises up, and then the other half stays in place. So you slide your arm in on one side and then pull down the rest. I mean, it's effective, it works, but I was totally caught off guard by that. I was like, what is this? I've never seen this before. This is one of those attractions that you'll probably want to keep your head forward, so just mind that restraint during the ride experience. I wouldn't necessarily call Shockwave rough. I think it does have a couple jolty moments, but like I said, I mean, if you keep your head forward, it's really not that bad. I do think the front is smoother than the back though, so if you get the opportunity, front row I think is the best. I think it's just more enjoyable up there. If you do want to ride the front though, I'd say get there like first thing when the ride opens. Shockwave operates with one train and those dispatches can be long. But then again, so are most B&M stand-up coasters. So you start up at the station, you have this long section of straight track, like I said, it goes over the rapids. You'll go up your lift hill and bank left into your drop, and this is really not much of a drop. It's a very gradual descent. I like how it gives you a little view of the park. You can see the water off to the left-hand side. It looks nice. Your first element is a vertical loop. Shockwave isn't a very long ride experience, so these 4 inversions that you're going to hit, like that is the ride. It doesn't really do anything else. So this vertical loop is fun, a little bit more circular than a lot of the other like B&M loops that you would see. Those tend to be more ovular. Your next element is a 0G roll, and like this is the highlight of the ride, for sure. This is really, really good. You get upside down airtime. Yes, that was the thing before Pipeline. This felt like a precursor to that one inversion that you have on Pipeline. Like right when you reach that peak of when you're upside down, your feet lift off the floor, you just perfectly roll to the side, smooth entrance and exit. I was definitely impressed. Following that, we have another nice long section of straight track. You're like, oh, something else is coming, but we have to wait a couple seconds first. And then double corkscrew. One leads immediately right into the other. They have some decent whip to them. Not as rough as I was expecting. But again, I kept my head forward throughout most of the ride experience, so I really didn't think it was bad. Nothing too crazy about these. Like I said, the 0G roll is like the element of the ride. Because after those corkscrews, you have a really, really long section of straight track to make it back to the brakes. And beware these brakes. These things can slam to a stop kind of hard. So in total, it's 1,640 feet of track. Definitely one of the shortest stand-ups out there. But at least for people in Europe, I mean, they probably haven't experienced anything else like this. There's only one other stand-up coaster in Europe, and it's over in Italy. It's a relocation. Remember the old Skyrider from Canada's Wonderland? Yeah, that's there. But this is definitely the stand-up that most Europeans are probably familiar with. In a lot of ways, it does feel like a B&M stand-up coaster, even down to the track design used. When Intamin designed this, they subcontracted Gio Vinola to do the track, and then a lot of the people from Gio Vinola went on to found B&M, so that's why the track looks that way. Luckily, they got a much better train design than this one. But I'll tell you what, for a 1994 coaster, it really doesn't run bad at all. I was overall pretty impressed. I'm not going to pretend like it's the greatest thing ever, but I was really glad to experience this thing. Definitely for its uniqueness. For its final score, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I like what there is to it. I really didn't find the stand-up aspect of it uncomfortable. I appreciate a quirky ride. The straight sections, though, I'm not going to lie, are definitely a little much. I'm like, really? There wasn't like anything else you could do here? But whatever. If anything, it just proves how much better roller coasters have gotten. I am really going to be curious to see how it operates as a sit-down. So let's talk about this change. Drayton Manor as a whole is becoming more of a family park. They've removed a lot of the more extreme attractions. Shockwave's really the only one left. And it's also got a much higher height requirement than everything else here. This is a 54-inch coaster. So their idea is that if they convert it to a sit-down, then they can go down to a 48-inch height requirement, which opens up to families and kids. Which, if your choice is to make that change or just go ahead and scrap the whole thing like they did some of their other attractions, like Drayton Manor could easily be taking this thing out, so I'd much rather them convert it to a sit-down. And frankly, I'm totally used to that at this point because Cedar Fair did that to a lot of their stand-ups. Six Flags did that with the original B&M, but in those situations, they put floorless trains on it. But does that mean that this will be getting floorless trains? I mean, this does use B&M track, so it might be compatible, but then again, it is technically an Intamin ride. So is Intamin going to be designing a new train for it? The advantage to those floorless trains is that they sit higher up than most coaster trains, so it's not that far off from the original Heartline that Shockwave was designed for with that stand-up train. To my knowledge, you can't just put a really low-centered train on this ride. The forces will be different. So I'm really curious to see what they do here. Do they keep it the over-the-shoulder? Do they go lap bar? I don't know. But it will also be receiving a repaint, so this will be its third set of colors. And then the big one, it's getting a brand new name. So while everyone's known it as Shockwave for over 25 years, they're going to have to get used to the new name. It's going to also have some new theming to really coincide with the area that it's in. So big changes for the future of Drayton Manor, and that's not even including their new roller coaster that they'll be receiving in 2024. So this is definitely a park that you're going to want to check out next year. But you still have time to go experience Shockwave as a stand-up coaster before it changes for good. So let me know down in the comments below if you plan on riding it or if you've experienced it and taken your last rides. What did you think of it? And stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.